physicians, massage therapists, dietitians, and other medical professionals, totaling nearly 100,000 across the state, are regulated by a single entity, the State Medical Board of Ohio. Do you know who we are? You're listening to MedBoard Pulse, a podcast by the State Medical Board of Ohio. I'm your host, Jerica Stewart, Communications Officer. Let's talk, Ohio. Welcome to the very first episode of MedBoard Pulse. Here at the State Medical Board, we are excited for the opportunity to share important information and explore some of the topics we deal with on a daily basis. If we start from the very beginning, the Medical Board was founded in 1896, so it's going on 128 years of public service. Of course, a lot has changed over that time. For instance, in the beginning, the board only regulated physicians and midwives. Jumping to the year 2024, the board regulates physicians and podiatrists, physician assistants, dietitians, anesthesiologist assistants, respiratory care professionals, acupuncturists, radiologist assistants, and genetic counselors as well. I think it's important to point out that with almost 100,000 licensees, the Medical Board has a big job, but it is still only one of the state's boards and commissions with the authority to regulate medical professionals. As you listen to this podcast, understand we don't have any authority over nurses, pharmacists, dentists, PTs, or psychologists, just to name a few. There are many boards in Ohio, but we all have a similar mission, protecting the public. To explain more about the responsibility, our very first guest of the show is crucial to the board's success. I'm excited to have her, Executive Director Stephanie Loucka. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
Jerica, thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So, first question for you, how would you describe the purpose of the Medical Board?
Jerica, the purpose of the Medical Board is to protect the public. We're here to protect Ohio's patients in their healthcare encounters.
That sounds like a really big responsibility, and there's a lot that goes into that. What is your role as the executive director?
Yeah, so my role is to operationalize the business units that we have so that we're making sure we're protecting the public. At the board, we have what we call kind of two main lines of business. We have licensure and we have enforcement. Our licensure unit is looking at applicants as they're coming into the state or as they're renewing their licenses at the state, almost 100,000 of them. And they're making sure that those licensees meet eligibility, right? Like they've taken the right tests, they have the right education, they have a clean background check. So our licensure team is making sure that the individual is eligible for licensure. Our enforcement team, which consists of a group of investigators and enforcement attorneys, are then responding to complaints that we've received about those licensees. So our enforcement team is the team charged with taking forward actions to the board if something goes wrong in one of those patient encounters.
Such a heavy burden and a lot of responsibility there. You're a lawyer by trade. Do you think that's helped you in this role?
I do actually think being a lawyer has helped. It's definitely not a requirement of the job. We have a chief legal counsel and we have a whole team of lawyers that work for the board. However, as I'm thinking about what can we do to make the work of the board better and how can we make sure that we're protecting the patients in the best possible way, I think it's helpful that I'm able to analyze our laws, our rules, provide input on case strategy, and really understand what laws we may need to change or advocate for change to make sure that we're able to provide that safest encounter possible.
So with almost 100,000 licensees across the state, we're very busy all the time. But in addition to licensure and disciplining, those providers who need some help and who have done something that is wrong, what else is the board involved with?
Yeah, Jerica. So our licensees play a really important role in Ohio, right? They're taking care of all of our citizens. And so as part of that, the board is involved in a variety of activities, either relative to the licensees themselves or ways that we need to be maybe looking at our rules and laws to make sure that we're providing a safe experience. So for example, the board is very active in the Governor's Recovery Ohio initiative, right? So we care very much about the way pain management is prescribed in Ohio, because we know Ohio has had a really tough time with the opioid epidemic, and prescribers play a role in making sure that we are not inadvertently getting people addicted to opioids. So the medical board plays a really strong role in making sure that we have the right laws and regulations in place to help with that opioid crisis. We're also here on the recovery side. So we're making sure that our practitioners are armed with the right tools that they need to make sure that Ohioans have access to good recovery care. In addition to the Recovery Ohio, we're also very involved in statewide human trafficking task forces. So as the licensors of massage therapists, we frequently get pulled in when there are suspicions of unlicensed massage therapy. We're there on the front lines with those who are doing those investigations to determine, is this legal massage therapy? Is it illegal? And we're there helping when those human trafficking busts are happening.
Yeah, we're so busy.
We are busy. And then, of course, we're also constantly looking at emerging policy issues, right? So when telehealth started taking off during the pandemic, it was a quick adaptation for a lot in the medical community. We had to make sure we had the right regulations in place to make sure that people were getting access to healthcare, but also that it was still going to be a safe healthcare experience.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Need to find a provider? We have more than 98,000 licensees across the state, and you can look up one in your area by visiting elicense.ohio.gov. Just fill in your city, select Ohio, and medical board from the drop-down menu.
You know, one thing I hear a lot, whether it's online or from individuals when I'm out in the field, I think there's some confusion. Does the medical board create laws?
So the legislature creates laws, Jerica. The medical board does not create laws. However, we sometimes have opinions about laws, and we like to work with policymakers to make sure that when laws are being created, that we're keeping those patients and the citizens of Ohio in the forefront, and we're making sure that they're having, again, that safe patient encounter.
I think it's really important here to point out that the medical board is a complaint-driven agency, and it relies on members of the public as well as some medical professionals to report inappropriate behavior when it happens. Why is it so important to file a complaint with the medical board instead of just telling someone like a facility administrator or going directly to the police?
Yeah, so if we don't know about the complaint, we can't take action. Now, there are some law enforcement jurisdictions who are very aware of us, and they know to call us, and they know to let us know if there's something that we should be concerned about. And we are certainly every day making efforts to grow those contacts with law enforcement, and law enforcement's been a great partner. But we're a big state. We have a lot of healthcare practitioners. And again, a lot of people don't know who we are. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to make people more aware of who we are. If we don't know about a complaint, we can't respond to it. We need people to come forward. Over the past 2 to 3 years, we've done a really big campaign with our licensees on their duty to report to us. So really emphasizing with practitioners that if they know, actually, if they even believe there's been a violation of our Medical Practices Act, they have a responsibility to report that to us. Let us do the investigation. Let us try to figure it out. But we need to have that complaint. And it's easy to file a complaint at the medical board. med.ohio.gov. File a complaint.
Absolutely. med.ohio.gov. So that's one of the resources that we have available to people. I think folks are still surprised to learn that our primary mission and responsibility is protecting the public. So what other resources are available at med.ohio.gov?
Yeah, right. So it's a great place to look up your licensee. You can click into the state's website, which is elicense.ohio.gov. You can get there through our website, but you can look up any healthcare practitioner, even one's not licensed by the state medical board. You can look up a nurse, you can look up a dentist, a psychologist, a social worker. And what you can do is make sure, one, do they have an active license? And if they do they have any board action on that license? And is that a concern for you? You can read the details of those board actions if they do have discipline. You can also go to our public section of our website. There's a series of videos. We call it the Get to Know the SMBO. That's because creative people like Jerica can come up with catchy names.
Oh, thank you so much.
So our Get to Know the SMBO video series explains what we do as a board. It kind of takes the mystery out of the board. And really gives the public a view into our different types of complaints and how we work on a day-to-day basis. We also engage regularly on social media, so we encourage you to check out our Facebook page. We encourage you to subscribe to our X, formerly known as Twitter site, and on those pages, what we're doing is providing updates not only about the board, but we also like to keep you up to date on current public health initiatives as well.
One thing, too, I know you didn't mention is that, so we have monthly board meetings where the board actually deliberates on actions and creates policy, and those are open to the public. Is that right, Stephanie?
Absolutely. Public can come, they can watch a meeting. Those meetings are open to the public.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to shed some light on the inner workings of the medical board. You've shared so much helpful information, and we're just scratching the surface. Make sure to listen to our next episode, where we'll do a deep dive into what happens when you file a complaint with the medical board. Thank you for listening to this episode of MedBoard Pulse from the State Medical Board. A special thanks to our Executive Director, Stephanie Loucka, for being our very first guest and explaining the mission of the medical board. Subscribe today to hear our episodes right away. For more information about the medical board, visit med.ohio.gov. You can also email questions or comments to communications@med.ohio.gov. And remember, the more you listen, the more you'll learn, and the more you'll share.